What's up, beautiful people? Today we're going to be checking out Trump got duped. Vivek Ramaswamy shares criticism of the 45th president. Let's get to it.
Chris Roberts, Air Force veteran, currently employed with the last electric railroad in the United States, Iowa Traction Railroad, right down the road. Come check us out.
I will. Yeah, it sounds fun, actually. Thank you for your service, my man.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for what you're doing. I'm a natural skeptic, so
Good.
If my question sounds a little confrontational, it's not.
Don't apologize.
Sounds that way. I like your idea of just dismantling the alphabet agencies, but the reality of that is if that's what your intention is, there's going to be a lot of people coming after you.
Mm-hmm.
The media, I mean, call me a conspiracy theorist, call me what you will, but if that's what your intention is, there's a lot of people who are going to be threatened by their job being taken away. A lot of money is going to be taken away. A lot of corruption is going to be taken away. And that's a great thing, but man, that's a big task, and I like that idea, but I mean, how do you do that?
Yep.
I mean, without totally just, I don't want to say destroy the country, but just, I mean, that's taking a big, I don't want to say taking the foundation away, but that's a big task, man.
It's a big task.
I like it, but I mean, how do you do that? How do you?
So let me walk you through a couple elements of it. Tell me your name.
Chris.
Chris, I appreciate you, man. Thank you. So I don't take this on lightly. But this is something that is the job of one person to do. United States President. To run the executive branch of government. And it takes a rare combination to get this done. Somebody who grew up in the swamp of Washington, D.C., or even within government is not going to get this done. No chance. It takes an outsider. Somebody who's been a CEO, I have been, who understands that if somebody works for you and you can't fire them, that means they don't work for you. It means you work for them. Because you're responsible for what they do without any authority to change it. I think I uniquely bring that. Trump brought that too, but that's it. But it takes a rare combination of not just that outsider who's coming in ready to break glass, almost with the purpose of breaking some of that glass. I'll be honest about that. Not just that, though, but an outsider who also understands the law and the Constitution of this country with such depth and conviction that I will act accordingly regardless of what the managerial swamp tells me I can and can't do. And that's where Trump got duped. And I think it was duped. The advisors that he picked told him that the civil service protections stop you from firing federal employees. Well, read the law. Those civil service protections prevent a president from firing individual employees. Say if you work at the EPA and I disagree with your views on abortion, then I can't fire you. You can agree or disagree whether that's a good law, but that's what the law says. It does not apply to mass layoffs. Mass layoffs are absolutely what I am bringing to the D.C. bureaucracy. Now, I'm eyes wide open. What's going to happen? We're going to get sued. We're going to get sued by many of those aggrieved bureaucrats who should have found honest work in the private sector long ago. And by the way, this is a win-win. We have a job opening surplus in this country, so maybe he's going to help everybody out here, okay? Put some people back to honest work in the private sector. But they're going to sue us, and that's fine, because I've also studied the current Supreme Court. I'm probably the only person running for U.S. president who has written books that have been quoted by federal appellate court justices in the last 2 years in their own decisions, and some of them are on my list for who we publish, for who will appoint to the Supreme Court and to the federal appellate courts.
Wow. And
they agree with me, 6-3, the current Supreme Court does on this issue. And I give Trump credit for that, because he gave us a great Supreme Court. So now what happens? We take that to the Supreme Court. It's going to be unpleasant for me to spend.
But if the Supreme Court agrees with you, would that be that they are biased? That's what it will mean, right? Just saying. But don't get me wrong. I'm not against what he's saying right now.
So now what happens? We take that to the Supreme Court. It's going to be unpleasant for me to spend time in litigation as a U.S. president, but hey, that's my job. I'm signing up for it. As I said, I don't relish it. But we're going to do it. Then the next guy who comes along after me doesn't have his hands tied in the same way. And you see, that's how we drive change in this country. Trump gave us a great Supreme Court. He didn't go all the way with it, but he did his part. Gives me a head start that he didn't have. We will use that to then codify this vision of 3 branches of government, not 4, back into the Constitution of this country so the next guy that comes after me is able to drive an agenda much more effectively than even I or Trump did. That's how we drive change on the time scale of history.
Right.
And I think this is really important to understand in our movement. The America First agenda, it doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to Trump. It didn't belong to Reagan. It didn't belong to George Washington. It belongs to us, to we the people. And when you're guided by that purpose, not just by vengeance and grievance or personal ambition or personal vengeance, but when you're guided by that purpose, then I believe nobody's going to stop us in getting it done, especially when we're grounded in our conviction in the laws and the Constitution of this country. And that is a rare combination. Mm-hmm. On one hand, you'll have legal scholars and people who write books over here. On the other hand, you might have CEOs and entrepreneurs over here who can break things but don't really understand the laws. Those things don't go together. Not often. And that is what gives me my sense of purpose, our family, our sense of duty to see this through. Apurva asked me, my wife asked me, she's a surgeon at Ohio State. She's one of the best in the world is what she does. She's a throat surgeon. She saves lives every day. Lucky to be married to somebody who, when I'm doing what I'm doing now, I go home and still not the person who did the more important things in the household that day. And she asked me, first thing when I raised this crazy idea last December, first question was, okay, all right, even if we want to do this, are you sure you don't want to wait 20 years till our kids are out of the house? We're going to be able to do this.
That's a real concern.
1-year-old and 3.5-year-old, and on Mondays through Fridays when I'm traveling, they're all with me. And she asked me, and also when we have more experience and all this, and we thought about that for a while. That was a very reasonable, sane question to ask. But the truth is, and where we settled was, I don't think we have 20 years left as a country, actually. I don't think we're working with that kind of time. And I think we have a moment right now, right, where, even just think about people my age. They've been taught for years to go to Ben Jerry's and order a cup of ice cream and put some social justice sprinkles on top, satisfy that moral hunger with a quick, fast food hit. That's wearing off now. We have a generation that's hungry for direction.
You know what's very, very, what is significant in what he said? I mean, I get why people call him Trump 2.0, but Donald Trump said the same thing almost in the same manner. Donald Trump said, if we don't act now, we're going to lose our country. And most of the points he's emphasizing in this video, Trump also raised those points, and he's raised it in multiple videos too. So yeah, I think it's a crucial point, especially right now for a lot of countries. Canada is the same way. Now, I'm not saying people should vote for liberal or conservative, but it's a time to cause change to policies because a lot of things are not working. Yeah, so it's very crucial. I do agree with that as well.
It's hungry for the real thing. And last November, I watched that red trickle that was supposed to have been a red wave. I understand what's going on. You can't just sit around criticizing. Have I talked about Republicans and Democrats today? Have I even talked about Joe Biden once today? No. I mean, maybe I'll mention him from time to time because he's an awful president. There's a lot to pick on. But we're not going to deliver a landslide election by complaining about the capital R, capital B, radical Biden agenda, reciting his talking points, sounding like a bunch of partisan hacks with the binder that's handed down to us from on high from a super PAC, saying what we're actually supposed to do in defeating the Democrats. We have to offer a vision of our own. We have to stand for something. Mm-hmm. And if we're willing to stand for something, 3 branches of government but not 4, the fact that we ought to declare independence from our enemy, Communist China, for our modern way of life, that we ought to actually embrace capitalism and grow our economy instead of apologizing for it by drilling and fracking and burning coal and embracing nuclear, revive national pride amongst young Americans, make sure every high school student in this country is able to pass the same civics test that my parents had to pass, that my mother and my parents-in-law had to pass in order to become citizens of this country. This is how we revive the lifeblood of a constitutional republic. Okay? And I think that that's what this comes down to. Are we running from something, or are we running to something? I'm leading us to run to something, and when we're guided by our purpose, not the administrative state, not some bureaucrat standing in the way, they're not going to stand in our way before we get that done. And for me, my destination is not November 2024. It is not even January 2025 when I take office. It is January of 2033. When I leave office after 2 terms, what do I want to tell you that we actually got done in this country? And the top of the list is that we will once again have a constitutional republic with those 3 co-equal branches, and that cancerous shadow government in the deep state, it will no longer exist. That much I know that I'm uniquely positioned to get done, and I thank you for that question. I appreciate it.
Vivek Ramaswamy. Yeah, he's a very good orator. Took us from the question, but he did answer the question, said he's going to do a mass firing. He answered, but then took us to his own dimension of further campaigning for himself. But he was pretty reasonable what he was saying. I like Vivek Ramaswamy, so I understand. I mean, you should understand if I'm being biased here. Yeah, so I like him. I'm not going to ask you to vote for him. I'm not in America. I'm not an American, so I'm not advocating for him. I'm just saying I like him as a person, and I like his resume and what he brings to the table. I also like Trump and DeSantis too, and RFK. Well, he stated very, 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 very important points. He gets a lot of criticism from his civic rights test. People say, why would you ask people to write the test? But I feel like understanding your history for any country, understanding your history is very vital. You have to understand the thing that happened in the past so you can understand the context of the future. You know, how to move and navigate in the future. For instance, I think he even mentioned in the Breakfast Club, most American youths would choose TikTok over voting. So young people need to understand their civic duties. People need to understand the American history. They need to learn about things their forefathers fought for. They need to understand that, so they see the value in them also fighting for it. Otherwise, you might lose it. So I don't know why people are criticizing this. Maybe people are criticizing his execution, because he said before you can vote, you have to learn these things, which I do understand from both sides. I understand why people might say that, but also if you're voting to choose a president, you should at least understand why and a little bit of history before you're choosing a leader of the country. So it does make sense, it does make sense. Again, I'm not in America. I'm not an American. I'm not advocating for you to support his policies or anything like that. I'm just sharing my points. And if you like it, you can do it. If you don't like it, totally up to you. But if there's anything I said you want to correct, add to, or critique, please feel free to do so. Talk to us in the comment section. That being said, is the end of this one. Smash the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Have a wonderful day. Peace.